EU threatens no soft landing for Britain after no-deal Brexit, not be on good terms. Separate sources in the European Union and a leading EU capital have warned about expectations of a no-deal deal and the ramifications for the UK if it pulled out of the EU without settling its divorce bill. European officials have said if the UK exits the EU without a deal, leaving an immediate €20 billion black hole in the EU's 7-year budget framework, there will be no appetite to help engineer a soft landing for the UK. A senior EU diplomat connected with the Brexit negotiations told the Daily Telegraph, "This is pure fantasy. The idea of a no-deal deal completely fails to understand the EU, or the fury that would result if the British leave without paying their bills. At that point, the EU wouldn't be looking to make a parachute for the UK, it will only be working out how to cut strings." A second Brussels-based source was equally clear. If things go really sour, the 27 will be in no mood to try to collate a number of last-minute mini-emergency deals for free. "We'll be busy enough trying to sort out the budget fallout." The new tough line taken by the EU raises queries regarding the assurances given by Brexit Secretary David Davis to the House of Lords EU Select Committee this week that in the very improbable event that a deal proved beyond the two sides, worst-case scenarios would be averted. He said, "Whatever happens, we will have a basic deal without the bits we really want." The UK contributes around €10 billion a year to the EU's annual budget. If that sum was continued, Prime Minister Theresa May would have to find another €20 billion to ensure the sort of basic Brexit deal envisioned by Mr. Davis. The EU's current budget cycle runs up until 2020, leaving 2 unpaid years by the UK in the event of crash-out Brexit, making €20 billion the key number that would keep the remaining EU member states from having to reopen the budget. Mrs. May has so far pledged that the UK will pay its dues in 2019 and 2020 in order to secure a transition in future trade deal. But equally it is unsure if the EU, who could demand around €60 billion or even more to settle the UK's accounts, would accept €20 billion for a basic Brexit. The warnings from Europe also cast doubt over the scenario planning at the Department for Exiting the European Union, which Whitehall sources have said are based on the idea of both a managed and an unmanaged no-deal. In the unmanaged scenario, recently described as a bad-tempered Brexit by Chancellor Philip Hammond, the UK would crash out of the EU with no deal whatsoever, causing significant initial disruption over trade, aviation, data sharing. EU sources said that in such an eventuality, only a deal to secure the rights of EU citizens stranded on either side of the Channel, perhaps based initially on unilateral pledges from the EU and the British government, would be likely. However, given the scale of likely chaos, the UK therefore envisages a managed no-deal scenario, in which the government believes it would strike a number of quick deals to mitigate the worst impacts of leaving without a trade deal.